Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association. I'm Kenneth Kinney, but friends call me Shark, and like you, I'm a professional speaker and I love listening to Speakernomics. Speakernomics is a professional speaker show that will help you thrive and grow a speaking business so you too can change the world, one keynote session, workshop, and speech at a time. And on this episode, well, this is the second part of a four-part series, if you will, with guests speaking about speaking internationally. We went all over the globe for this one with a lot of amazing speakers to talk about their global points of view. Now, to all my speaking friends, you want to speak internationally, but are you the expert in an industry or fractal that makes your insights valuable in that vertical, if you will? Or what about if you want to target a region? Let's say that you want to speak to the automotive industry all over the world, or you just want to target certain areas in, let's say, Spanish-speaking South America. That approach can be different depending on your subject matter expertise and respecting where you are, literally and figuratively, in the knowledge marketplace. In part two, then, we'll ask some global experts what it takes to be a successful international speaker when targeting industry to industry in global and specific markets. Let's dive in then with the perspectives of speakers all over the world who have seen what works and what doesn't. Hopefully, some of their insights will help you take a new look on what it takes to become a better international speaker. Let me remind you, too, that if you're not following their voices on the audio version, then make sure to check out NSA's YouTube channel to watch the video version of the show there. The experts that we're showcasing today, all 10 of them in order of appearance, include U.S.-based Ruby Newell-Egner, U.S.-based Sylvie De Giusto, New Zealand's Elias Canaris, the UK's Lavelda Vincenzi, Singapore's David Lim, South Africa's Joni Petty, Germany's Rainer Pettick, Sweden's Anthony Lassinai, Mexico's Jesus Tobias, and closing us out is she was Australia's, but now she's US-based Amanda Gore. And before we jump in, make sure to go to speakernomics.com. That's where you can find the tips, insights, and knowledge to help you become a better speaker, build a better business, and get paid to speak. Now, let's learn from some special people, and then I'll see you on the other side with some international takeaways. Ruby, well, how do you go about being country-specific or even industry-specific in your targeting? Let's say that you wanted to do more work in Dubai or UAE in particular, or India or Bali or any of those places. How do you go about specifically targeting those areas?
One of the beautiful things about my job is that a lot of my people move around and a lot of my clients move around. So currently right now, the Saudi Arabia is doing a lot of building, and a lot of my clients that were in Dubai have moved to Saudi Arabia and are building the Crown Prince is spending $1.3 trillion on sports, leisure, and entertainment. That's my area of expertise. And my clients already know me, so they're building there. And so I go where they are. So they already know me. I have a great reputation in the industry. So we're already working on engagements when those facilities open. So it's a nice thing to be able to work with them. Plus, I speak at their international conference every year. It's coming up next month. I'll be able to see them in the United States. That conference is always in Orlando. So I'll be able to connect with them again and reconvene. So we'll be able to talk about what I can do for them when those facilities open. So it's nice that they move, and it's nice that they take me with them.
Sylvie, how should someone think about positioning themselves? Let's say that, a lot of speakers want to speak in particular countries or regions, and then some want to speak, say, to the pharmaceutical industry, say, inside that vertical. How do you go about thinking about positioning yourself either country to country or industry to industry?
Well, first, I don't think that it's much different from positioning yourself in the US. The first question is always, why you? Why should they fly you in from a different country so that you have the honor to share your knowledge with this audience? What is your proven experience that you can share it on a global scale? What are your results and the impact of your work that it's actually interesting for a global audience? Do you have high-profile clients that you already spoke to in your past from, with an international background? Is your topic innovative and relevant for a global audience? Do you maybe have a multicultural background that somehow would add just that little asterisk on top that they think you would better serve a multicultural audience, that somebody who is from, nationally from there? So the first question will always be why you, and you need to position yourself. Why is it you that they should pick you over one of their local speakers? And I think the second thing to understand is why is it your, yeah, the balloons. I think the second thing to understand is why your topic. And your topic might not be relevant at all the times around the world. So different regions have different hot topics and different trends. If you are in the US market right now, as we record that interview, everybody is asking for speakers, everything around artificial intelligence, technology, technology, disruption, digital transformation. But that topic right now is just in the European market. Their focus right now is very much on sustainability and future of work. While if you want to be strong in the Asian market, they are asking for a leadership topic right now. If you want to be strong in the African market, they are asking for entrepreneurial skills. So you need to understand is your topic right now hot in a specific market, and then it will be easier for you to position yourself in that market as an additional valuable source for conference planners.
Elias, how do you think about positioning yourself then if you're looking to either position yourself country to country or industry vertical to industry vertical? Because when you are looking, you're not looking at everywhere. I'm sure you're looking at it with a little more focus than that.
I tend to look at it regionally. So I'm looking for activities, for example, in the USA or the UK, where there's a strong and a big British and English speaking community. Obviously, when you're going out there to speak, it's easier if you have connections in those areas where you can go to them and develop the relationships that I mentioned earlier on. When I'm looking for opportunities, I'll also then look at it from a vertical. If there are, for example, associations, we all know that associations have got so many conferences, you cannot shake a stick at them. And you've got to turn around and say to yourself, am I there for exposure or am I there for revenue? Because if you're looking for revenue, I'd probably say that associations are not the ideal market for you to target. But that market can give you an opportunity to develop and to grow. I remember being asked when I first came and got involved in the speaking industry, I was asked, are you a consultant who speaks or a speaker who consults? Now, let me just qualify that. If you are a consultant who speaks, you go there, you share your statistics, and then you walk away having shared your information. But if you're a speaker who consults, you share stories and you get the engagement and you understand which are the 2 or 3 people in that audience who can then book you either to come back in and deliver a keynote paid to their organization or are likely to engage you in a consulting assignment. So you have to understand what are you looking for when you go out there to identify the speaking opportunities. A lot of speaking opportunities are speaking for free, and you can find them all over the world. The question is, how do you go from free to fee? And there are 2 ways to do that, either by being able to identify 2 or 3 people in the audience that you can go and get booked to speak at their event, or take it from the aspect of how do I then add a consulting assignment into that organization.
Lavelda, in the international marketplace, when you think of trying to position yourself country to country, or let's say specifically industry to industry, how do you go about doing that and positioning yourself as that go-to expert, regardless of what the border is?
It all comes down to the client and what they need. So if I'm going with an international client, for example, I tend to lean on the fact that I'm international myself. So I grew up in the South Pacific. I was born in the Caribbean. I kind of did my teenage years, adult life in the UK. And so I had a really eclectic international background. So if I'm doing work in a different country, but for an international company, that context really helps. So I'm looking for, I think it's like selling with anything to anybody. You want points of connection. Where is what you do going to be useful? But it's also around understanding where you might deviate. When are there going to be occasions where perhaps you're not necessarily going to be the right fit? I'm not going to be the right fit for all different geographies, but I do know, for me personally, at least, I'm the right fit where it is a very international crowd. But if you need something that's very, very local, where maybe it's a political arena, and you need somebody who really has that local context, it's probably not going to be the right fit. I think ultimately, when it comes to doing international, it's about understanding the markets you want to go into and where the differences are so that you can align. And I don't think that's any different from positioning any other product or service internationally. And I think we can also get so hung up on this word international. Oh my gosh, I'm going outside of the country. I'd just say start with cultures that are as closely mapped to yours as possible, but understand that if you're going to a culture that's incredibly different from yours, bake in additional prep time, because things that worked, expect some of it's just not going to land in the same way. And you'd be prudent to do a little bit more research. There's lots of places you can go now to find out about a culture, right? There's lots of people you could speak to. There's lots of research that you can do, but I would take the time to give yourself a bit more time to do that research.
And I think that's true, not even from a cultural standpoint of country to country, but the subculture, if you will, inside of an industry. It's something I tend to notice, like if you're looking in fintech or higher education or home improvement and home services, each of those has a culture that's sort of different on its own, outside of whether or not it's, Spain versus England, which is...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as speakers, we're supposed to be a little bit more astute and attuned to the audiences that we're speaking into. And going international just adds another layer to that. In the same way as going into an industry, it's a different layer. I just wouldn't think that because you're doing fintech in New York, it's going to be the same as fintech in Japan, right? Just, there's another layer that's being added. The same way you go from, I'm doing fintech and now I'm talking to construction, so I'm going to take a moment to find out a little bit more about the climate, the context, what the pain points are. I just add that in because it's a new country.
David, how do you go about positioning yourself, especially when you think of doing this country to country, or do you position yourself industry to industry? When you position yourself really as that in-demand expert that people want to hire, how do you think about positioning yourself outside of Singapore?
All right. So I think you've got to have something that's reasonably universal to position yourself globally. That's how I look at it, right? So in your topic, your topic could go deep dive, and that could only be pertinent to a smaller list of clients or audiences. But at a higher level of abstraction, I mean, like for example, at the very high level of abstraction, I'm known loosely as a motivational speaker. But then you pull it down to a more granular level, right? You say, well, this guy led the first Singapore Mount Everest expedition, survived 6 months being totally paralyzed, and made a comeback and climbed as a partially disabled climber, and now shares leadership and team leadership and self-leadership skills and tips globally. So at that particular sort of granular level, it's still fairly universal. People want to learn and hear from others who have either overcome things, and they want to know what their own research and what their own unique anecdotes and stories are telling people. So at that level, basically, it's fairly universal. So I could appeal to a very wide range of industries, a wide range of various events, and a wide range of audiences. So I really encourage people who want to speak globally to have something like that. Have something that's universal, but at a granular level, attractive enough to want you to specifically be picked to be a keynoter at various conferences. And usually they only have budget in Asia Pacific for one reasonably highly paid external speaker. And hopefully it's you. So your topics got to have it's got to come with all that. You've got to bring your A game. You've got to bring something that's at the granular level going to be very relevant to these people, and something that's going to be quite different. Don't try and market and sell yourself at a very high level of abstraction, because then you kind of fade in the background with everyone else who has a fairly similar topic, right? They want something that's just kind of different, kind of special.
So, Joni, how do you go about then targeting those geographies? A lot of people will either target, like you said, Australia or the Middle East, or they'll target a specific industry like banking or pharmaceutical or whatever. But how do you go about positioning yourself so that you have that narrowed appeal, if you will, to a broad audience inside a whole country?
Yeah, I've gone about it through relationships, Shark. So it's really it's not about just, trying to find people and then build a relationship. I have luckily been in business for 33 years, and I've done a lot of volunteer work and a lot of, work along, especially during COVID time, around emotional intelligence, which is the model I have behind me. And people have come to me. So I've been very fortunate. I've had a attraction strategy where, because of the exposure I've done online globally, is that especially in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, I had people contacting me to say, Joni, we love your resilience work. We love your emotional intelligence work. We've got, we run a training business and we have huge clients. Could you come to Abu Dhabi, as an example, and run some of your resilience programs in Abu Dhabi for our big clients? And that has fueled relationships and more clients in that area. So I've been fortunate that, reciprocity and attraction has led to doing more work and doing work where I know I want to make a difference.
Rainer, when you start thinking about looking country to country or industry to industry, is there any way that necessarily moves you? For example, let's say that you wanted to speak a lot more in the U.S. How do you go about approaching that market, which may have bigger fees than, say, somewhere in South America?
Yeah, if I really wanted to do that, yeah, and maybe I come to that. I come to that later. I would go via my German clients who have some structures in US as well, which I did for 3 companies. But I just have to have in mind to do a speech, to do a gig in America. It would take me one week, I would say, for doing all the travel, accommodating to the time zone, doing the speech, flying back, and doing everything. Of course, the fees are bigger, but if I do it smart in Europe, where I can reach more or less any country within 2 hours, it's maybe not the wisest decision business-wise to go for gigs in America. But what I definitely do, although it takes a lot of travel time and it costs me much more than doing my business here in Europe, it has a marketing effect. It has a marketing effect on my clients in Germany. So having spoken in Bali, for example, 4 weeks ago, having spoken in India 2 weeks ago, has a marketing effect back to my clients in Germany, Switzerland. This guy is somehow a brilliant speaker. This guy must somehow be thought leading. This guy is maybe someone we should hire for ourselves. This is a way of marketing on the one hand. On the other hand, is it also very, very positive for the fees I can get here in Europe when I'm seen on the social media speaking internationally. So that's the main reason for me that I do it. And of course, it's also about building up the international network, especially through the National Speakers Association. I'm a professional member since, I would say, 2016 or so. I became also a member of the NSA, although my home base is the German speaker. And this helps a lot because you get so much inspiration on the one hand, how to do business, getting out of the German bubble, and on the other hand, it's just a great support network if you do a gig overseas or international. Having someone you can ask, what should I do here? What could I do there? And it's absolutely great.
Anthony, what do you think of positioning when you consider whether it's country to country or, say, industry to industry? For example, if you wanted to speak in Dubai, then you might target all the companies in Dubai. Or if you were in the pharmaceutical or automotive industry, then you might just target whatever the geographic footprint, but you would target all the automotive and pharmaceutical, regardless of where they are on the map. How do you go about positioning yourself from that perspective?
Well, since my topic is workplace communication and how you get along with people, whether you lead, serve, or collaborate, it's really industry agnostic. And I am speaking to so many different industries myself. So I target leaders in big companies, normally international companies, HR people, CXOs, sales people as well, sales directors, and so on. So I don't really care about if you're in automotive or if you're in healthcare, although I do love healthcare. I do that. And there are certain industries that just don't want to work in or contribute to. But apart from that, it's more regional for me. So I do like to speak in, and I have been to for instance, Southeast Asia a number of times, Middle East, like Dubai as well. Europe, obviously, since I'm from Europe, that's easy. So I live in Sweden. So basically, that's my home base together with the neighboring countries around Sweden, which is Norway, Denmark, Finland, Baltics, and so on. That's where I have most of my work. And then the US, of course, it's always one of those countries that, your listeners are probably mostly from the US, and you already have the biggest market, you can say, with the highest fees and everything like that. So it's like that song, if I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. And I don't know when this will be broadcasted, but I do have my first gig in the US coming up very soon. So that's going to be fun and hopefully more to come.
Jesus, for any speaker who's looking at whether it's industry specific or country specific, how do you think about positioning yourself, either country to country or industry specific, for what it is that you talk about in the speaking business?
Well, talking in general purpose lectures or whatever a speaker wants to talk about, you have to find out what that special country or sector is looking for or needs to be solved. You try to solve whatever. If you are a problem solver, you are going to have a market. In my case, I don't try to fit all the audiences, because I look instead the audiences that are looking for information like the one I want to share. So for me, it's easy to go anywhere because everybody is looking for happiness. So I can go to the pharmaceutical, to the military, to any kind of target, because it's easy to put happiness inside in any congress, whatever. So if you already know the kind of the customers, the audiences that works better in your country, do the same outside. The same. Just try to fit with the flavor of that country what you have to offer. Maybe with different words, with different information, but the core has to be the same. Has to be authentic. Just be you. That's it.
Amanda, when you think about your own career, you've lived in Australia, you lived here in the States, you've spoken in both markets and had to position yourselves for those changes. And you think about all the verticals as well that you've spoken in, whether it was real estate, insurance, or any of the others. How do you go about positioning yourself country to country or industry to industry in order to build that international speaking business?
I wish I had some clever strategy that I could demonstrate as being U-Butte at marketing. But the truth is I haven't. I have had a very blessed career, but I've always believed that, and my first mentor, Ron Tacky, told me, every presentation you do, and I call it a presentation, not a speech, for a reason, you do is your best marketing material. So I would just do my very best at everything I did. And then I would get invitations overseas. And the difference is that I would make sure I understood the culture I was going to, what was appropriate, what was not. Like I've spoken in Asia a lot, and it's very different there. In America, you can't say things on stage that you can say in Australia because people are mortally offended. Like, in Australia, you can call someone a silly bitch, and I keep breathing anybody who heard me say that and gets offended. And we say it, silly bitch, silly bastard, as a term of endearment. It's the tone that you use with it. But you can pretty well swear on stage in Australia appropriately, not poorly, when it kind of matches the language that's in the culture. But that's not a thing you can do here, although it has changed, I must say. Comedians get away with it like crazy, but it's not been something that I think's been appropriate in the corporate world. However, it sneaks in more and more. I hear other people say it. So I make sure that I really understand the particular issues that market is facing. And I make sure that I incorporate that into how I'm speaking. Because if I just have a speech and I deliver it in any country, any time, and it's exactly the same speech, you might as well just be speaking to a piece of paper because you're not relating to that audience. So it's really important that you find out the cultural norms and the specific language patterns of a country and then tie into that.
Now, let's do a quick recap based on their expert international advice. Number 1, localize, don't generalize. Everyone emphasized the critical need to adapt your message to the local culture, language, humor, and values when speaking internationally. Even universal topics like leadership or motivation must be tailored to resonate with the unique mindset of each local audience. Number 2, relationships open doors. Success abroad often comes more from word of mouth, networking, and in-person connections than flashy speaker reels or websites. But regardless of the location, referrals come from trust-based relationships. Number 3, credibility comes from the inside out. To earn global gigs, it's not enough to be an expert. You must build trust as an outsider entering a new market. Audiences want relatable proof of your message's relevance to them wherever they are. Friends, make sure to join us at speakernomics.com and let your voice be heard. I'm Kenneth Shark-Kinney, your host of the National Speakers Association's podcast, Speakernomics, and this has been another fantastic episode of the show. Grazie, avalati, mahalo, asante, tak, and thank you for the privilege of your time. And remember, Speakernomics is a podcast where you'll learn to speak, get paid, repeat.